everyone. Welcome to the Leaders of Impact. This is a series where we speak with leaders who have created impact through technology, transformation, and leadership, and explore not what they have built, not only what they have built, but how they think, how they make decisions, how they lead, how has their journey evolved. Today, I'm really delighted to have joined Rahul with me. Rahul is a solution director and SAP cloud solution architect with more than 20 years of international experience across enterprise, finance, architecture, SAP transformation, cloud native finance systems, and AI driven financial process optimization. He currently leads high impact finance transformation programs, including system managing over 1 billion in annual public expenditure. He is also creator of DFRA, the Bhatia Digital Finance Reference Architecture and FAST framework, both designed to help organizations reduce complexity, de-risk finance transformation, and accelerate business value. So happy to have you as guest, Rahul.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Vikram, for the invite. I think it's a good opportunity for us to sync and discuss.
Lovely. So, Rahul, your journey spans SAP, finance, consulting, enterprise architecture, public sector finance, so many different things, AI driven finance capabilities. Maybe, it would be a good idea for the listeners to get an overview of your journey from yourself.
Absolutely. Look, it's always very tricky when somebody asks me about my journey, how I started. I won't go into many details, but I can only say that, I started learning from scratch SAP. I did not get any hands-on experience to start with, but I started actually opening a book, and that's how I started. My interest started actually reading the books about the subject, and that interest me to further invest into the subject. Now from there on, and I mean it, I actually started reading a book. My first book, which I remember, was on SAP architecture. How do you define successful architecture? So yeah, I started my journey like that, and then being from India, born and brought up in India, I started working in India and started my first job with Samsung in India. And of course, when you are on the job, your first job, you're very excited. So yeah, I started learning new solutions. Thereon, I think the journey started in SAP world, and then I landed up in the UK. Long story cut short, been in the UK now 25 years, and been into SAP world for more than 19 years now. Here I have been working as an architect, as a lead architect, lead consultant, did many hats, and started working on these solutions in parallel. AI-driven solutions, SAP and ECC, etc.
Lovely. Yeah, that's an amazing journey, Rahul. Looking back across your entire career, there must be a lot of transformations and achievements that you would have done. But is there any specific transformation or impactful achievement that is really close to your heart that you might want to discuss more as part of this podcast, because we are talking about leaders and their impact that they have created?
Absolutely. I'll start with the very latest transformation program that I have been involved with. It's the one of the leading councils, I would name it, Manchester City Council in the UK, because I'm currently working at HCL Technologies as a solution director and cloud architect. I started a transformation program 2 years ago with Manchester City Council, where we actually deployed the public sector module of SAP and deployed the cloud solutions for them. Now, the interesting part, the very, I would say, one of the most challenging parts here for this council was they were migrating data from basically 10 different ERP systems into one system, which is the SAP cloud version of it. And that public sector is not that easy. It has many constraints and a lot of technicality, a lot of bureaucracy in terms of data manipulation, or how do you handle the data, GDPR, etc. So you have to be very careful, because it's the citizens' data at the end of the day. You're handling citizens' data worth £1 billion in revenue. And managing that transformation program as a lead architect was a huge responsibility for myself, where I had to design the end-to-end architecture, the end-to-end solution in the safest manner so that the citizens' data is protected. The most important part, and which you asked me, what was the closest thing to my heart, was where I am the only thing I would say is, I have implemented my own architecture framework here within this organization. So I got an opportunity to implement at HCL Technologies and the client Manchester City Council my framework DFRA, where we actually created a layered architecture module for the client. Now, this layered architecture actually deployed 10 different layers for the client, where we actually harmonized their data and defined a faster close process for them, which in a standard way, as the closing process is not very streamlined. It's not very helpful for organizations. So yes, it was very close to me, because I personally I'm the proprietor of that DFRA framework, and having that implemented for a client at HCL Technologies was a huge recognition for me, because it was something that I was always hoping to deploy in public sector and sharing my expertise in the public sector transformation programs.
Lovely. Now, overall, I mean, as you've already mentioned, is an important piece, and I think your frameworks have already helped reduce the closing by more than 40%. So, what usually slows down this financial close, and how technology can help fix these things?
Well, typical constraints that I have witnessed over the past 20 years of my experience is that data is basically fragmented. It's basically in distributed across multiple sources. Now, a lot of these organizations start with the mindset of cloud first strategy, for example. When I
Mhm.
say cloud first strategy, any transformation program starts with that mindset. The CFOs, the CTOs, and the leadership of any organization always thinks that we will transform our systems and we'll go to cloud solutions first. But what they miss is actually the foundation. The foundation I'm talking about here is the finance data. The finance data is where it's actually the real problem for an organization, because it's so much high risk data. You have to handle it very carefully. Now, when I say reconciliation, the data sits across multiple databases. Now, to reconcile the data, one has to use spreadsheets, one have to reconcile the data from one system to another system, and then join the dots and then produce a final balance sheet or trial balance at month end. Now, this task, Vikram, you know that, I know that this usually takes weeks to do that, because that's why every organization starts, the closing process at least 2 weeks down the month end process. So it's T minus 14, T minus 14 or 15, we say it in the technical terms, that the closing process starts. But with the DFRA framework that I have proprietary and the new cloud solutions that we have implemented for the councils in the UK, this actually does a faster close by reducing 40% of reconciliation efforts. What it does is basically it harmonizes the data, fetches the data into one single database, and then produces reconciliations for all the processes such as subledgers, assets, your general ledger, your receivables, and your payables. So this does in a harmonization, it does very quick reconciliation for the clients, and you can join the dots very quickly with master data inconsistencies, etc., across the database.
Amazing. So, apart from improving the efficiency, how much has it actually impacted in the overall accuracy of things? Because the older processes where it used to take like couple of weeks to get things done, and whenever the scale is large, the possibility of have errors also increases in the same scale. But with your framework, apart from reducing the time, how much has it impacted the overall accuracy for the final output?
So one thing, Vikram, we have always said to the customers is, regardless we implement my framework or any new other framework that is out there in the market, what we always tell the customers is we don't want to impact your existing processes. The customers always have this fear in their head in any transformation program that our existing processes should not get impacted. We want to adapt. We don't want to change the existing processes. So we want to go ahead with the technology, but having no impact on our existing processes. One interesting thing that SAP does, and probably you are aware of it in the SAP cloud ecosystem, is that SAP does not allow you to change the existing processes by default. It gives you an option. You actually can uplift the existing processes, or you can stay on the existing processes. So the data impact was assessed. We do that in data impact assessment. We do the different data strategies. How do we load the data? How do we extract the data? And then you provide some mapping rules to the customers. Wherever we see impact, we highlight to the customer it's a high risk object. For example, material master, as you know, general ledger accounts. These are some things that we obviously highlight to the customer upfront. But then data harmonization is something we always keep in mind before any transformation journey.
I mean, this is really very helpful for anybody who might be, looking to have this kind of solution. I would just curious how much of an AI is already implemented or is part of this entire framework, because everybody has been looking out for some sort of AI in a A lot of people find AI as more of a buzzword. They don't know how to use it. They are always looking for, some sort of optimization, some sort of cost cutting. Now, whoever comes to their vicinity, they might be selling them certain wrappers around those frontier LLM models. But again, they don't work on production many a times. So, as part of your framework, your solution, how much of AI is already, in integrated it?
So that's a very interesting question you have asked me. I must say, AI is heavily being used now, as you all know. As everybody knows out there, AI is now the bread and butter for many organizations now in their transformation programs. The reason I said bread and butter is without AI, I think it's impossible to even imagine now how do you actually look at data the way you used to look at 20 years ago. Now, if this question was asked to me 10 years ago or 20 years ago, I would say I will rely on spreadsheets. I would say I would rely on my manual, manual resources to do reconciliation. But now we have AI. You basically download the data and upload it in a Copilot or in a Chat GPT or Claude version of it, and then it does the magic for you. In my framework, I will say that we are using at least 40% of the reconciliation or the backend coding or the transformation layers are basically based on the AI solution. Now, what this solution is, it actually is looking at the different layers and put the data in different buckets and then transforms the data automatically with the reconciliation tool that we have embedded in the framework. So it does have AI, but then obviously human in the loop has been kept in mind, and we are basically keeping a balance between AI and human in the loop.
That's fantastic, and that is one thing which is more or less I've seen all good AI architecture solutions will always have human in the loop at the right spot. I mean, you cannot have everything just automated and being done through machines. Right kind of intervention from humans will definitely make a better solution or a better system rather than just trying to automate everything 100%. You
Absolutely.
also created another framework, FAST, right? Finance, architecture, strategy, and technology. Maybe, if you can talk a little more about it, how it can probably help leaders think more clearly about the transformation that they're looking.
Absolutely. So with FAST, as you rightly explained it, FAST is basically finance, architecture, strategy, technology. The reason behind this framework was to basically kept governance in mind. Basically, the reason this framework was created was governance and control. Many organizations I've witnessed, and over the last 20 years, where I have transformed digital transformation programs, I have witnessed that governance has been a challenge for organizations where they have to define some control frameworks in terms of how do you manage your data, how do you define responsibilities or segregation of duties within the organizations. And the fundamental foundation that they miss is basically the finance data, because the risk starts with the finance data and the people who manage that data. So I think the term itself is very self-explanatory, but the reason behind this framework was control and governance. And to keep that in mind, I came up with this idea, why not create something that organizations can now embed within their processes, within their transformation programs, and start using this, in a fair way. Of course, this framework is my framework. I have patented this already, and I'm already using it in many organizations globally. There are a couple of organizations who have actually reached out to me and where I've actually explored this framework with them, and they're actually in the POC phase of this using this framework.
Amazing. Lovely. What are the biggest risk in these financial transformations? There must be a lot of structured architecture that might be getting used as part of the solutions that you're building. But how do you identify the biggest risk and how do you de-risk them?
So the biggest challenge has been to identify these risks. Is we start with the foundation of the legacy systems, the source systems. The strategy that we always adapt, and when I say we, as part of HCL Tech, the strategy always has been, our mindset has been, we look at the underlying processes where the data is coming from, these different sources and different sources of, when I say systems, I mean the satellite systems. Many organizations have, third party systems outsourced. They are using one system for direct debits, they are using one system for collections and disbursements, and one system for tax revenue, etc. We look at the data from the source itself, the satellite systems, and then we look at the target architecture where that data would land in a different process. So the strategy is to identify the risk from a data point of view early, and then look at from a process angle point of view, and then start defining the architecture. When you say how do we de-risk it, well, the de-risk starts with the framework adoption. Whether it's my own framework DFRA or using the standard best practices of SAP or even TOGAF framework. The strategy is to fit the risk into the target architecture by deploying the frameworks in mind, and also keeping in mind that the client's existing processes are not impacted. So that's the key strategy for us.
It's very rightly said. I mean, making sure any transformation is not disrupting what was actually working. I mean, you are definitely having the idea to make things better, but in the process of making things better, you cannot just break what was already working. So that's
Absolutely, very well said.
so in a lot of your transformations usually would require, the CFOs and CXOs to come up and, discuss and approve. So in general, for any kind of finance transformation programs, for a CFO or CIO or maybe whoever is a business leader who wants to take the decision, what are the kind of right questions that they should be asking before approving any major transformation?
So, man, Vikram, this is also very very good question and very close to my heart. Actually, these are the questions, when we actually do the initial stage, we call it a discovery phase. So whenever we start a transformation program, we just directly don't go into a transformation straight away and say, now we will deploy this solution for you and pull your data. No, that's not how we start. We actually have a phase in mind. When I say phase in mind, we define different phases of the project, such as discovery and explore. Now, when I say discovery, discovery is the first phase. That is when we understand from the business what are their current challenges, how do they actually do reconciliations, what is their org structure, what are their segregation of duties. We understand their as is currently, and this is called discovery. In the explore phase, we would actually go into the explore mode and try and basically sit with the business and try and map their existing as is to the target. We give them the opportunity to basically enhance their existing solution. We call them uplift, or we basically say we can adapt, we can use the target system but keep the existing processes as is. So there are different strategies we adopt in every phase of the project, and discovery and explore play a key part with the business, where we actually ask them the questions, and business usually have these questions for us actually. How would you enhance our processes without impacting the finance as is architecture, or how would you create a new architecture for us without creating any disruption in our existing production system? So these are some typical questions we actually get from the customers.
In your journey, you worked as, consultant helping out with SAP, worked as an enterprise architect. I'm sure there might be a lot of listeners, who would want to be somebody like you, who is the solution director, transformation advisory. So somebody who is still working as an SAP consultant right now, what would be your recommendations in terms of additional skills that they should try to adapt or acquire if they really want to, grow as somebody who can be a solution director?
So my first take on this will be, start with the free learning on SAP. If you are interested, really keen on SAP, SAP has got a free link out there which is for e-learning. One can actually enroll itself and start learning on the latest technologies. Now, obviously, your interest should be in a specific area or a particular area that you want to focus on and invest in. So yes, definitely SAP has some good learning tools out there. Being a finance architect myself, I would definitely advise everybody to go into finance and start learning the finance resources, and use as many resources out there. But definitely e-learning, SAP e-learning is the best path for anybody to start exploring. Even consultants or architects like myself still go onto e-learning tools and start learning on a daily basis, because it is the one platform of SAP where you have the latest trends and latest technologies being updated on a daily basis. So I think one would keep in being in SAP, I can say every consultant and architect is definitely enrolled into that, because that is the key place where everybody should go there and check the latest facts.
I see. You've already been working as a mentor for, certification of emerging SAP architects as well, I believe. So,
Yes.
what do you see missing in how future enterprise architects are being developed?
So I think, and I know, and this is also a very good question you have asked me, because I think I get this question from a lot of my mentees who actually ask, how do we become a successful enterprise architect, or what is the strategy from a consultant to an architect's journey? One thing I would definitely say is, with a functional knowledge, one would need to have a technical background as well, and a technical background does not come with a flick of a button. You actually have to invest some into technical resources, understanding the coding, understanding the how the technical system works behind the scenes in a database. So I think that's the key here, to become an architect. To become an architect, one thing I would say is very important is the mindset. If you have a mindset to resolve queries, if you have a mindset to join the dots, then you are ready for becoming a technical architect. Because every technical architect, Vikram, I've seen over the last 20 years, or even the people I have trained, I have noticed one thing in them is they have that curiosity to join the dots, the technical database, to do data analysis, or analytics as we call it. You can analyze the data, and if you have that mindset, you are actually in your stepping stone or stepping journey towards becoming an enterprise architect. So data analyzation is one of the key factors, I would say, to become an enterprise architect.
Lovely. You've worked across different countries, across different enterprise environments. How has this experience actually, shaped your overall approach towards the enterprise transformation?
Yeah, well, I say myself, sometimes I ask this question myself, that I have been across the world, in almost every country, and having done these global transformation programs over the 20 years, I think one thing I've always enjoyed is the people and the food, I would say. So That has helped me to carry on with these transformation programs and the relationships that I have built over the last 20 years. I think there have been some tremendous colleagues I have met on these transformation programs for the last 20 years. One thing I would say that has carried on with me also is the experience of one transformation program to another. Every country has different localizations, legal impacts, and tax structures. Every country's, I would say, deployment strategy is different for a client, right? I might be a client in one country where I have one strategy, but the same client might have a different strategy in a different country. And why is that? Because of the legal tax structure or the statutory reporting that they have to do. So I think the experience actually counts a lot, Vikram, doing these transformation programs, whether it's manufacturing industry where I've got experience, whether it's the pharmaceutical industry where I've deployed multiple transformation programs, or whether it's retail clients or automotive industry. So I think the experience does matter a lot. And once you actually get a grip of these, statutory requirements or tax requirements, you actually know what the base foundation is for any client, whether it's marketing or marketing company, or whether it's a pharmaceutical company or automation industry. I think the experience does matter a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that definitely speaks about people who are probably not having global experience. They should probably try and find opportunities where they can go out and try to get that experience from different geographies. Looking ahead, how do you think the finance function will change over, say, next 5 years as cloud, automation, and AI becoming more deeply embedded?
So, and I would say one thing here. With the use of AI, I think we all are getting our hands on onto AI now. It's a must that we must adapt it, and we must, go with the flow. Finance function will definitely change, and I'm already witnessing it. I'm part of that transformation change already in many organizations that I'm working on. Agentic AI will play a key part here. With the agentic AI being there, the finance processes are going to be automated. When I say automated, there will be very less interaction of humans with these finance processes, and the only way humans will be responsible or interactive is basically to basically approve or reject the flows or the process flows in the organization. They will actually be responsible for review of data, but the actual work will be done by the agents. So if, for example, one has to execute a month end process or basically post some invoices in the system, you will use an agentic AI tool to give a command to it, a prompt to it, and then it will post the transaction for you. But when it comes to approval of that transaction, it's the human in the loop that we call it. The human will get involved. So I think the finance function is definitely already changing. And in 5 years' time, I actually see very less function in the finance ecosystem that will be manual. I think 100% it's going to be automated solution, but with some involvement of humans to review the data, for example.
That will change the way industry works, the speed, overall throughput for anybody and everybody trying to provide the outcomes that are needed is going to be drastically different as opposed to how things used to be done in the past. But we are already seeing the difference as of now. And with the pace with which technology is advancing, who knows, the future is going to be very different.
Absolutely. And I'm very excited about the future, to be honest, because I'm always very optimistic about what's coming out there. I think to be fair to everybody out there, one must always invest in the current technology that is out there. We should not keep on waiting that, okay, you will keep on learning. I think one would learn it and invest in that solution and deploy that. You should get hands on into this. I think that is what I keep on telling my mentees and my colleagues in the company, that guys, please invest in this solution, because until you know this, you will not be able to get to the next stage. So you have to invest in yourself, and I think that's the key here.
Amazing. Investing in yourself, continuously learning and improving, that's the only way to grow. So that is definitely an advice that most of the successful leaders would try to pass on to their followers, their mentees. What are the two lessons that you would want the future technology and transformation leaders to carry with them? I mean, of course, they need to learn continuously and improve, but from the enterprise architecture perspective, what are the two lessons that you would recommend? I mean, as a closing note.
One of the things that is very close to me is basically getting the current trends, following the current trends. I think most of the leaders or enterprise architects out there do not actually pass on the current trends to the workforce out there, or the entire ecosystem that is out there, for example, in the enterprise architect community. For example, an architect might be aware of how AI tool works, but I think sharing that trend across in the market is a big deal for everybody. So I think the current trend should always be followed, and I would request the enterprise architects out there, like myself, to share experiences, because until we share experiences, it's not easy to follow. So one thing is definitely sharing your the current trend and experience, and one thing I would say for the mentees or the people who are actually working towards the technologies, to follow the current trends, what's out there. Do not just rely on news to tell you, or cloud or chat GPT to basically do the magic for you. One would have to follow the current trend and then follow that trend. That's one thing I would focus on. Second thing I would say is, again, we already mentioned, that is invest in yourself. That's the key here. I would always invest, and I think that's my number one priority, for the next 5 years at least. I would invest in myself, continue learning, regardless I'm an architect or I become a director in the future. But definitely that is what I would say: invest in yourself, continue learning. That's the key here.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you so much, Rahul. It was amazing discussion. So many good insights about the great transformation. So much of learnings for the people who want to grow as transformation leader like you. And these two insights about continuously investing in yourself and then passing on to the next level, both are, I'm sure, would be really helpful for all those people who are listening to us. So thank you so much for taking our time, for sharing journey, sharing your transformations, your achievements, and a lot of learning with the listeners.
Thank you, Vikram, for having me. Thank you for having me too.